Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Friends of the Dar, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The majority of our speakers for this season were excellent, and their chosen topics and subjects were intriguing and informative. The 27th cultural season has proven to be an exceptional one. Nevertheless, we saved the best for last. This is the last lecture of the 27th cultural season, and we are looking forward for the coming season. Tonight, Dar al-Athar al-Islamiyyah is fortunate to welcome Dr. Sabina Antonini de Margret, very Italian. She will be discussing South Arabian works in the al-Sabah collection. No change, right? As was planned by the gifted owners of this collection, it continues to ignite the imagination of the researchers to inform us of the treasures hidden within these collections. Dr. Sabina is an author, she's a researcher and an accomplished excavator. Her archaeology campaigns include Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and Ethiopia. She has written on South Arabian archaeology and art history. Dr. Sabina researched objects in the al-Sabah collection. She says that those objects inform us of the practices and customs of South Arabians in their private and public lives. That's what you say. I'm not sure if she found what they tell us, how the mobile phones are used. But nevertheless, this will remind you to turn them off, and let's welcome Dr. Sabina Antonini de Margret.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Sheikh Awusa, to give this lecture, and thank you, all of you, for coming. It would be any archaeologist's dream to find in situ only one of the pieces of this wonderful al-Sabah collection that, except for the Yemeni museums, is the richest and more interesting South Arabian collection, both from a historical and artistic point of view. I show you a map of ancient Yemen in 8th century BC. The collection includes stone objects and sculptures in alabaster and limestone, metal objects in bronze, silver, and gold, almost of all local manufacture, and the artworks span a chronological period between the 3rd millennium BC. I show you an example, of two male and female statues of the collection of the Bronze Age, and I would like to show you also a settlement, an example of settlement of the Bronze Age period. And here there is a reconstruction of the same settlement. So between the 3rd millennium BC and the 3rd, 4th centuries AD. The collection includes various categories of objects that essentially come from three settings: funerary, religious worship, and domestic. This rich and diverse collection provides many important insights regarding the characteristic of ancient South Arabian material culture. I show you some examples. This is our ancestors, statues and reliefs in alabaster, incense burners. Thinking how to present the collection, and since it comprises some 80 pieces, I decided to only focus on those which have made the collection extraordinary, although I quickly presented the most common works. Although the contextual provenance of the objects in the collection is unknown, mostly it can be deduced not only from the model, I mean the type of the objects themselves, but also from the nature of their epigraphs, through the analysis of the language and the paleography, that is the evolution of the letters of the inscription over the centuries. In terms of funerary sculpture, the collection does not provide us with any new information. These are Mainian and Katabanian objects. I show you a map of the region of the Main Kingdom and Kataban Kingdom, known because they come respectively from the necropolises of the Yemeni Jouf and from Haid bin Akil, the cemetery of Temna, the capital of the Kingdom of Kataban. The Mainian portrait of the deceased is carved in high relief in the top half of the stela, with his name carved below. The face has a rather solid appearance with a square chin, eyes wide open in a severe square. This type of stela often portrays male figures recognizable from the slightly raised chin strap there following the line of the lower jaw. The front surface of the stele retains its red paint, except in the lower part, which was probably driven into the earth to indicate the burial site. The practice of spreading a layer of red paint over limestone and sandstone surfaces was very common among the South Arabians. The aim was undoubtedly to highlight the relief and incisions, the image and the inscriptions. Funerary sculpture of this type, which are extremely numerous, are thought to be Mainian because they come from the necropolises of the Yemeni Jouf, the only one of these necropolis to have been excavated by the Italian mission, archaeological mission, in Marrakesh. I show you the excavation here. I mean, it's a good excavation. Seems, in disorder, but because it was plundered for centuries. But almost we found still in situ, not standing, but almost in the archaeological context, dating between the 3rd centuries BC and the 2nd centuries AD. In the Sabaean, this is the oval temple of Marib, dedicated to the patron god of the Sabaean, Almaka, and was excavated in the 50s by the American Foundation for the Study of Man, and then 70 years later, or maybe not, 50 years later, by the same American Foundation for the Study of Man. But the necropolis, the cemeteries on the north of the temple was excavated by the German archaeological mission. So in the Sabaean and the Katabanian cemeteries, this huge necropolis is Haid bin Akil, that extends on the western slope of the hill, and is full of tombs excavated by local people, but in the 50s by the same American archaeological mission. This is our excavation, and also here in the foreground. I show you a detail of one complex of tombs. Each tomb was organized in several numbers varies in several rooms, and each room was divided in 3 levels, like here in this reconstruction. So the deceased in these tombs are represented with symbolic portrait in alabaster, in the round, or in relief. These portraits are placed in niches, for Marib, for example, or are positioned on bases bearing the carved name of the deceased. Here, the name is on top and is typical of Marib, and this one is Katabanian. The objects of the collection that have come from places of worship are mostly metal, especially bronze, and they extend across a very broad time span, from the 8th centuries BC, for example, the statue of an ibex, to the 2nd century BC also. This is another ibex of the collection, and you can really see the difference of style between this one, kind of geometric, I mean squared, and this one more naturalistic. And so from the 8th century to the 2nd century and the 3rd centuries AD, for example, the figurines of dromedaries. Many of these works in the al-Sabah collection, such as these images, also of animals, but also inscribed slabs and votive beakers, are already familiar in South Arabian figurative production. Regarding the camel bronze, they were often dedicated to the gods to ensure the prosperity of the owner and his herds. Often, as in the case of the 2 pieces of the present collection, they were dedicated to the god Dusamawi of the Amir tribe, who were nomadic shepherds. Among the oldest objects of the collection stand out a bronze sphinx, the anthropomorphic winged animal resting on a stepped base. The body of the sphinx belongs to an ibex. The limbs are of a lion. The head is a human female with long flowing hair. Note the horned tiara. This cap is called tiara, a symbol of a divine celestial being. The Sphinx imaginary has been documented in South Arabian bronze plaques dating from 6th century BC, as, for example, the bronze slab in the National Museum of Sana'a. But there is another great piece at the British Museum of London, decorated with rows of facing sphinx. The blending of human and animal forms in this hybrid figure, as well as in the human-headed winged ibex from Al-Juba, define divine beings and symbolize the supernatural world. Other works in the collection with a presumably votive function are unique. These include the bronze bowl, which is exceptional because its iconography is very similar to that of the Syro-Phoenician bowl found at Nimrud, which is now in the British Museum. The peculiar technical and iconographic characteristic of this work suggests that it can be firmly included within the group known as the Nimrud or Syro-Phoenician bowl, discovered by Layard in 1849 in Sargon II, the Northwest Palace at Nimrud, now in northern Iraq, and generally dated to the 8th centuries BC. This category of gold, silver, and bronze bowls from Nimrud is thought to reflect a homogeneous production. Although they are of different sizes and shapes and they are decorated with different themes, drawn from the figurative repertoire of the Near East, including Phoenicia and Egypt, they are united by the presence of decoration in concentric bands on the internal surface of the vessel, executed in repoussé and chased. Similar bowls are known to have come from Assyria, Cyprus, Greece, and Italy. This bowl from the al-Sabah collection has the same subject matter, that means the lion hunt, with some variation, as the Nimrud bowl, as I told before, in the British Museum, although this has no bull. I mean, the bull, later I'll show you better, but is here. You have the lion hunt, the sphinx, and the horses. Despite variation and differences in detail, as well as the completely different style of the two bowls, the iconography of the Yemeni bowl clearly seems to derive from the same repertoire. Turning our attention to the bull, in relation to those depicted on the so-called bull bowls, because in this category there is a typology of bull bowls with rows of only bulls. The bull on the South Arabian bowl differs from the other representation in the shape of its horns, in the way the bull moves, and in the detail in general. The bull seen in profile does not have a single horn, as in the case of the bull bowls. The slimmer horn on this one, on the right, but is the left horn, shown in perspective so that the vegetal plume in the center of the head can be displayed. This detail is significant. It identifies the South Arabian origin not only of the commission, but of the bowl itself. The vegetal motif between the bull's horns appears in many South Arabian reliefs from the period of the first Sabaean rulers, that mean the Mukarrib, and this iconography tradition persisted until late antiquity. Floral decoration between the horns, together with the beast collar, indicated that the bull was led for sacrifice and was a popular image in South Arabian religious iconography. This distinctive feature confers a religious meaning to the South Arabian bronze bowl, suggesting that it was probably used in a sacred context. This bowl from the al-Sabah collection, although on the basis of the codified Oriental iconography of the lion ant, was made in South Arabia with the South Arabian variant of the bull with a vegetal plume between the horns and in a style that could be called provincial, some distance from the graceful and refined style of the ancient prototypes. The bowl's provenance is unknown. The provenance of this bowl is unknown. However, the bowl has an inscription here on the outer face of the rim, and the origin of the name could point to Sabah or a city in the Jawf region. The inscription, which is not well legible since the surface is very worn, appears to have been incised somewhat carelessly in contrast to the relatively refined execution of the bowl itself. It is not inconceivable that the original dedication was substituted with one composed for a new owner. Here you see the surface is abraded. Maybe there was another inscription, and for the new owner was renewed also the dedication. From a paleographic point of view, the dedication inscription can be dated between the 1st centuries BCE and the 1st centuries AD, according to Christian Robin, that is many centuries later than the prototypes of the 8th centuries BC. Its purpose may have been votive, or it may have been used in a religious context for libations. In either case, it could have come from a South Arabian temple. In conclusion, the variation of the bull with the plume between its horn and inscription represent a trademark, indicated that not only the commission, but probably also the production were South Arabian. If this is correct, this bowl would be the earliest example of this type of bronze bowl found in Southeast Arabia. The bowl in the al-Sabah collection is not the only example of the Nimrud bowl type found in Yemen. 3 other similar bronze bowls, includes one in the Princeton University Art Museum, one that passed through a London art gallery, and one in the Bible Land Museum in Jerusalem, and one fragmentary bronze bowl found in excavation of the Wadi Dura tombs, in Kataban, outside a stratigraphic context, also falls within the scope of this type of metalwork. The main theme that all these bowls share is the lion hunt, with spear, bows, and arrows. However, there are some variations. The scenes all take place in a naturalistic environment suggested by the trees, flowers, or plants, but different types of animals may be features, such as dromedaries, ibexes, scorpions, lizards, hares, eagle, and other birds. For example, here you have a dog that is not common. Some of the details of hairstyles and clothing of the hunters also vary. Nevertheless, there is a common iconographic model that was evidently adapted little by little to meet the requests and tastes of the client. The 2 bowls in the Princeton University Art Museum and in London Gallery have a South Arabian inscription on the internal wall, which must have been engraved at the time the bowl was made, since in both cases they give the name, the signature of the maker, Shuraih. According to Christian Robin, based on the paleography, these inscriptions can be dated to a period between the 6th and 4th centuries BC. This detail has a twofold importance. Firstly, the signature of the craftsman Shuraih confirmed the existence of metalwork production in South Arabia. Secondly, the paleography of the inscriptions give us the bowl's date of production. In the same category of decorated bowl in metal, the al-Sabah collection has 2 other unique pieces, one in gold and one in silver, with low-relief repoussé decoration detail with a chisel. In the gold bowl, probably found in the Katabanian site of Wadi Dura in Yemen, the principal decoration, which occupies much of the bowl's side wall, consists of 3 scenes. The first one, a hunting scene with a hunter kneeling on his right knee, having just fired 3 arrows against an ibex. The second scene is a realistic representation of a dromedary mating scene in which the male is larger than the female. One man is standing behind and another in front of the animals, dressed in the same way as the hunter. Above, the religious symbol is the crescent moon and the astral disk. The third scenes feature a battle between a centaur and a hybrid creature. This comprised of the hybrid creature is comprised of a feline's protome, raptor's wings, and a triton tail. Both is here. The triton and the centaur is here. This comprised, both the centaur and the triton are well known in the figurative motifs in Saudi Arabian art. The centaurs appears on some pyxides in the same al-Sabah collection, while the hybrid creature with the triton tails is known in South Arabian from Sabaean figurative reliefs of the 2nd to 3rd centuries AD. The theme of the ibex hunt is common in South Arabia and has an ancient origin. The kneeling position of the hunter and his clothing are closer to images that can be seen on bronze bowls, similar bronze bowls found in Southeast Arabia. This gold bowl merges local Oriental subjects, such as the ibex hunt, with those from the Greco-Roman tradition, like the triton and the centaur. The bottom of the bowl is decorated with a rosebud central medallion and bunches of grapes and vine leaves of Hellenistic origin. The silver bowl is realized with the same technique, repoussé and chased decoration on the internal surface, and signed by the artist Muhabba. The bowl has the decoration arranged over several bands. The bottom is decorated with a kind of cross motif framed by a rosebud central medallion, surrounded by 11 birds in profile, maybe the peacocks or eagles. The scenes in the central band could be described as pastoral, this one, and consist of 4 identical scenes. Each scene is composed of 2 large and 2 smaller rampant ibexes flanking a palm tree. The small one is upside down on the back of the big one. 2 identical and symmetrical human figures are seated underneath the palm tree, leaning against his trunk. Their torsos are bare, the legs are partially covered with drapery, and they wear armlets. This main central band is separated from each other by 4 identical images representing an eagle seen frontally, positioned above a human head with short curly hair in profile. This is the first known instance of a figurative composition of this nature in South Arabian art. The original motive for South Arabia is the eagle carrying away a human being. Where did this iconography come from? The theme of a human being carrying away by a giant bird was very popular in the art of the ancient Near East, in the Greco-Roman world, in India, and in Central Asia from the 3rd millennium BC until the Islamic era. But the Hellenistic and Roman depiction of the rapt of Ganymedes by Zeus in the form of an eagle began to appear in the figurative arts from about 375 BC, so 4th century BC, and the theme was popular for centuries until late antiquity. The direct model for representation of this theme in Indian art, as well as in Sasanian art, In Indian art, in the Gandhara art, the iconography of abduction was interpreted through the rape of a naga, a female personification of the serpent deity, by the eagle Garuda. And this theme was often imitated in Iranian art. So this motive derived from the Roman art. Who was Ganymede? Ganymede was a young man from Troy. His beauty was unparalleled, and for that reason, Zeus abducted and brought him to Olympus to serve as his cupbearer and lover. Bowls of this type were also common, as I told before, in Southeast Arabia, from the last centuries of the first millennium BC to late antiquity, as evidenced by finds in Fueda, in Oman, and Adur, and Moleha in the Emirates. The bowl found in Fueda represent a lion hunt and have an inscription, Marashams, in South Arabian letters. The bowl found at Adur bears the signature of another artist, Habban, in South Arabian letters. Both are interesting for two reasons. Firstly, because they come from data archaeological excavations, and because both are signed by the artist. All names of the makers, Shuraih, Habban, Marashams, and Muhabba, on the silver bowl, all of them are in South Arabian script. There is another bronze bowl from early centuries of the AD, decorated with hunting scenes, that bears names in South Arabian letters that may represent 3 generations of artists. The names are Wazmiya, Zaid, and Masyar. Unfortunately, I have not the picture. All these names in the South Arabian script on metal bowls suggest an established school of metalwork artists, probably in South Arabia, whose work was admired beyond its borders. It is therefore not inconceivable that some bowls discovered at southeastern sites of the Arabian Peninsula were imported from ancient Yemen or were made in South Arabian metal workers active in Southeast Arabia. Here the bowls are documented in archaeological context from the last centuries of the first millennium BC to late antiquity. I said probably because, according to some scholars, and I'm quoted, the Musnad inscription, the South Arabian script, cannot be taken as proof of an origin in southwestern Arabia, I mean Yemen, since this alphabet had a wide distribution and say nothing about its underlying language. The use of the script in southeastern Arabia is demonstrated by the recent discovery at Mleha of a bilingual funerary inscription dating to the 3rd century BC, which mentioned Emelech Oman, a king of Oman. For that reason, they say that it's not necessary that the artist is South Arabian. But beyond the place of production, it is important to point out that the metal workers sign their works. The signature were inscribed in visible places inside the bowl and were intentionally shown, probably because well-known and admired school of master metal workers had developed in South Arabia, producing work for the local aristocracy as well as further afield. The discovery of the names of various metal workers changed radically our understanding of these objects as artworks that were originally attributed to craftsmen anonymously fulfilling the demands of a commission. I mean, the oldest object, bowls, used to have the dedication of the god or the name of the owner, but never the signature of the master. By adding their signature, these metal workers became true artists. This is my opinion, from artisan to artists, seeking to set themselves apart from imitation and protect themselves from competition, ensuring that their works would be valued. The signature became a sign that affirmed the artist's skill and raised the object's monetary value, not only because of its quality, but because it came from a prestigious workshop. Just like Greek artists signed their works, as in the case of the bronze statue of the two princes of Saba and Duraidan found at Naklat Ramra, an inscription in Greek on the knee and one of one of the statue. The Greek is here, focus epoiei, focus made, and this is the name of the Sabaic name of the South Arabian artist Lahayam. And this proves that in the 2nd, 3rd centuries AD, there were itinerant traveling artists as the Greek focus in South Arabia. The strength of South Arabian religious devotion is demonstrated by the many bronze statues depicted in attitudes of offering or worshippers found in temples dating from the 6th centuries. These 3 statues were found by the American Foundation in the temple of Al-Makah in Marib. The statues in bronze portray male or female figure were dedicated to the deities in the temples. The dedication is often incised on the base or on the body or on the chest. Here is full of inscription of the dedication, as well as in the skirt, like in this bronze statue of the al-Sabah collection. A masterpiece in this collection is the magnificent bronze votive statue that represents a female figure with 2 long braids falling over the chest, her chest, and a triangular crown resting on her head. An amulet in the shape of a crescent hangs from a long chain. The full face and the larger eyes with the heavy eyelids express a deeply transcendent state. In terms of style, this work has the plasticity, linear profile, and essential facial features that are typical of the South Arabian tradition, with the same distinctive characteristics that are found in stone statuary, especially from Kataban, as in the alabaster statue from the al-Sabah collection. This shows that South Arabian artists and craftsmen were applying the same iconography to different materials, stone and metal, depending on their destination, I mean, tombs or temples or shrine in the house, and the client's financial means. This iconography has been previously documented in South Arabian art on small stone slabs. The correlation with iconography in these 2 figures is essential to understanding the original position of the missing arms in the present bronze statue. Based on this comparison, the female figure would have had the arms folded with a symbolic object in one or both hands. The figures carved on the small stone stele each holds either a twig, a bird, a bowl, or ears of wheat. In the stela from Bainun, the female figure wears the crown and holds a twig in one hand and a dove in the other hand. These two details led a scholar, a Belgian scholar, Jacqueline Pirenne, to identify the female figure with the Syrian goddess Atargatis. The statue may represent, but is not sure, of course, but this statue of the al-Sabah collection may represent the dedicant Gadal rather than a deity, perhaps a priestess, making a votive offering to the god Dhu Samawi, who is mentioned in the inscription on the garment below the abdomen. The statues of Aphrodite and Athena in the al-Sabah collection were also temple offerings. The very fine bronze statuette of Aphrodite that wears a tall crown with the divine symbol of the crescent moon, surmounted by palmettes, is Aphrodite's first known appearance in South Arabia. The goddess is shown in the act of placing a small sphere, in my opinion, probably a grain of frankincense, in a container or incense burner with a cylindrical handle, now lost, held in her left hand. Aphrodite has a wristlet band on each arm, whose, here, you see here, whose surface is engraved with regular parallel lines to suggest a thick, twisted bracelet. Is a bracelet, in my opinion, but is also a kind of escamotage to cover the joint between the shoulder and the arms, because in the statues the arms were made separately. Around her right wrist, there is a bracelet in low relief here in the form of a serpent. Is an armilla, it's called in Roman art. The statuette must have been fixed upon a bronze base, possibly circular, which is now lost. Images like the al-Sabah Aphrodite, whose iconography is an Eastern interpretation of original Greek and Roman types, were especially popular in Egypt and in Syria. The present statues may have come from a workshop in Antadaros, Tartus in Syria. The question arises because I found similar examples. The question arises, however, as to what her role was in traditional local worship. We do not know the context of her discovery, and there are no traces of inscription. But the symbol of the crescent moon seems to indicate that Aphrodite was probably assimilated with a local deity. The bronze statues of Athena is a fairly refined and elegant work despite the disproportionate arms. The position of the left arm is in line with the original iconography, with the goddess potentially supporting a shield with her hand, like the Athena Parthenos of Phidia, 438 BC, 5th century BC. However, between the thumb and the index finger of her right hand, she holds a smaller sphere. A grain of frankincense, as in the case of the Aphrodite described above. This gesture is present in other South Arabian feminine statues and suggests a stereotyped gesture for a ceremonial offering. Athena is dressed in heavy drapery with broad flattened folds and the edges depicting the head of a Gorgon Medusa at the center, The head is covered by a helmet with a crest now missing. The helmet is well done here, but on the top of the head there is a hole where was fixed a crest. A dedication to the god Dusamawi in the sanctuary of Yagaru is inscribed on the neckline, continuing along the left arm and then the right arm. The statue of Athena in the al-Sabah collection seems to be imported work adapted to meet the demands of the South Arabian Commission with a familiar local gesture and in the addition of the dedication. It is not beyond the bounds of possibility that the statue of Athena was not only a votive object, but it could be an object of cult itself. Therefore, the statue of Athena could represent a local goddess, as, for example, was the Greco-Roman Arab goddess Athena Lat in Palmyra, for example, in northern Arabia. The image of Athena has been known in southern Arabia since the 2nd centuries BC, as demonstrated by the well-known bust of a goddess of clearly Hellenistic craftsmanship and origin found in the Katabanian site of Jabal al-Lawd. The very rich collection of metal tableware, including the bowl in gold and silver, were mostly owned by women, as indicated by the inscription engraved on the objects. They were discovered among grave goods, but were also in use in daily life. None have votive dedication. They simply bear the name of the South Arabian artist or their patrons. The precious materials, gold, silver, bronze, the range of forms, bowls, for example, pyxides, ladles, saucepan and mirrors, and so on, and the variety of decoration, the mythological repertoire, hunting scenes, and floral motifs give us a cross-section of South Arabian society in the imperial period. I mean, Roman imperial period, from the 1st to the 3rd centuries AD, little known until now in terms of its material culture, but widely substantiated in classical and epigraphic sources. Thanks to its strategic location and covered raw materials, South Arabia was fully engaged in the network of trade that linked the Mediterranean Sea and the Eritrean Sea, that is not only the Red Sea, but also the Indian Ocean, reaching as far as the western coast of India. This network was dominated by the Roman Empire. In this context, should be seen the 3 exceptional cuirassed bronze statues of this collection that I presented maybe here a few years ago. The classes who rules South Arabia, both politically and economically, were attracted to Roman culture to the extent that they embraced Roman customs and abandoned their own traditional language of power in favor of something more cosmopolitan and effective from a propaganda perspective, and perhaps also more expedient. They adopted the practice of commissioning bronze statues of loricate rulers. You see the example of the old one and the new one. Maybe the gesture seems to be quite the same. A distinct transformation of the figurative idiom was already appeared in the latest of 3 funerary statues of sovereigns of the kingdom of Ausan. The last one, this one, by adopting the chiton and cloak that toga and tunica and the mantle, this king of Ausan broke with the traditions of his two predecessors, embracing a habitus of Greco-Roman origin, while preserving the entirely South Arabian stance with arms outstretched, standing on an inscribed basis. Just to tell you that this is the father, the son, and the grandson. Although the statue of loricate men in the al-Sabah collection have no inscriptions, they are particularly interesting because they validate theories about the presence and influences of the Roman after Aelius Gallus expedition in 25 BC into South Arabia, which have been predicated on the basis of Sabaean coins bearing the portraits of Augustus and on archaeological and epigraphic evidence. In conclusion, South Arabian civilization was highly developed and organized. It was at the center of trade. First, the caravan trade by land, and then later the maritime trade between the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. With the vast fortunes accumulated, the South Arabian people built walled cities. This is Marrakesh, where we had excavation, monumental temples. Here you have the temple of Nakra in Marrakesh, restored by the Italian mission, and the second temple of Athar Dukhabd, and there is another temple not yet excavated. Palaces, so cities, temples. This is a temple of Al-Makka, Sirwa, excavated by the German missions. Palaces, mausoleums, dams. This is the Marib Dam. So they imported luxury products, but they were able to develop a rich and skilled local craftsmanship for the local manufacture of precious goods that could satisfy a wide range of demand, from high-quality objects to less expensive artifacts. Thank you.